Friends!
Peace, family. Hope all is well with everyone. I'm back at it with another one like I do. Straight to the point, give you some knowledge, some information that, wasn't told to us. I know this wasn't told to us and wasn't given to us in any school. We all know who this character is, or most of us know who this character is. This character is named King Shark. He's a superhero, I guess you'd call him. And many of us know him because of the movies like Suicide Squad, where he's half shark, well, most shark, some human, pretty dumb, more childlike, if anything. But the thing that we don't know about this, not this character, but the original or the origin point of this character, as far as his name goes. We know this King Shark, but do we know this King Shark? Not many of us do know who this gentleman is. His name is Behanzin Bowelle, also known as the King Shark. He was an African poet king who defeated France from his throne of gold, 1841 to 1906. Behanzin, the King Shark, was the most powerful of the West African kings in the later years of the 19th century. In 1670, one of the King Shark's ancestors, Bahanzin I, visited Paris and was received with great honor by the Grand Monarch himself. With this relationship established between the African king and France, trade flourished between the two nations. The gift of this trading post was virtually responsible for the clash between King Shark and France 2 centuries later. The King Shark was an absolute king by every degree. So for example, I'm gonna list a couple of examples of what I mean. A nod of his head meant life or death. He himself was sacred. Only a few were permitted to see him do even the most ordinary things. If he wanted water while he was marching, a screen was placed before him till he finished drinking. When the water was passed to him, the soldiers would throw themselves prostrate on the ground as if they were enjoying the drink with him. Not even his saliva was allowed to touch the ground. When describing Dahomey was wealthy. The elements of its success were its trade, its powerful army, and the courage of its soldiers, who were deemed invincible. The army contained 25,000 warriors, the pick of King Shark's subjects. They were thoroughly trained and kept in trim by a system of gymnastics developed by the Dahomeians themselves. They were divided into brigades and companies. Discipline was perfect. And at the head of the army was Agli Agbo, the king's brother. Each warrior, when on the march, had a servant to carry his weapons and food. But the most redoubtable part of the King Shark's army were 5,000 warriors who were recruited from amongst the lustiest virgins in the kingdom and were sworn to chastity. They ranked above the men. The king picked his wives from among them, or he gave them to his bravest warriors. When a man had an unruly wife, he gave her to the king for his army. The training of these Amazons was rigorous. One of their drills was charging barefoot into a construction of thorns. One of the training drills, check this out. One of the training drills for these women warriors was to kill a bull with their bare hands. And they did that shit. And they did that shit. 200 of the sturdiest women warriors, 500 of the finest males formed the king's bodyguards. The preferred weapon of the Dahomeian warrior were short swords and knives, but some of them carried modern rifles, the use of which they had been taught by European instructors. The army also had 6 Krupp guns and a few field pieces, so they were well prepared to whoop some ass. Whether they needed a gun, a knife, a sword, they bare hands, they bare feet, their body, it don't matter. They was trained to go. Now, the King Shark had a policy, and that policy was to keep all white people out of the interior of his kingdom. Exceptions were made in rare cases only. These were permitted to bring with them no sextants, no surveying instruments or cameras. The customs service was strict, and visitors had to carry about with them a special passport consisting of a palm almond wrapped in a special kind of leaf. With fear of the king's wrath and the vigilance of his secret police prevented corruption of the country officials. Explorers and others who visited Dahomey were received as guests, for every courtesy was shown to them, but they were virtually prisoners. Guides and domestics received strict orders as to what was not to be shown and with whom the visitors were not to speak. The King Shark had ordered this because he had noticed every kingdom around him, for instance, the Ashanti, where they first appeared as traders, missionaries, and visitors, and then soon those Europeans were conquerors. They had took everything, and King Shark was alone, and he meant to remain the master of his land, of his ancestors. Bahanzin, or the King Shark, was tall, well-built, strong, impetuous, but dignified. Unlike his rivals, like King Tofa, who was a nominal ruler of the neighboring Porto Novo. And unlike his rich subjects, he dressed simple. In the manner of the senators of ancient Greece and Rome, he wore a long strip of silk around his body and draped across his bare shoulder. His only affectation was a long pipe of exquisite craftsmanship, which he puffed on most of the time. Yeah, he was smoking. So peep this out, right? In any case, the king shark had been getting too strong for the French colonies, right? Right, okay. Well, Germany had been supplying the king shark with rifles and even had 5 high-ranking Germans in his army. Well, in 1890, he defeated a French expedition and made France pay him for the use of Continental port, right? A trading position, right? Well, now he felt really strong. I'm talking about the king shark, right? He felt like he was unfuckwittable. Well, whatever the cause was, war began with France when the king shark declared that the treaty he made with France was null and void, right? But the treaty had been made by his father Gligli before him. And ever since that treaty, France was paying the Dahomeians 20,000 francs in gold just to use the port, right? Annually. Well, the king shark turned his back on that. He said, nah, we're not doing that, right? So when the French sent the Secretary of Colonies, the king shark, he pretty much brushed them off. The secretary brought gifts, if you would. King Shark pushed that shit to the side and said, we have cases full of that in Dahomey already. So when the secretary told him about how the system of government was operating in France, they say the King Shark took the pipe out his mouth and just laughed in their face and said, I much prefer to do it my way, which is quicker and original. So when Dahomey asserted he never ceded Continental port to France, and if the French don't get out at once, he'll drive them out himself. Well, war began. They're like, no, we're going to war then. But King Shark and his army was whooping their ass. And that's when France realizing, hey, this motherfucker ain't playing. France selected her best colonel fighter, a Colonel A.A. Dobbs, who was a Senegalese mulatto. And the King Shark defied him too. Fuck you mean? So now, let's finish it off and briefly go over the war that he eventually lost. Okay, so the King Shark and his warriors fought bravely, right? But they were no match for the well-armed forces of the French. The only advantage they had was in hand-to-hand combat. At a location called Achupa, a force of 7,000 warriors and 200 Amazons hurled themselves at the French. The women fought with supreme courage, preferring death over retreat. At a location called Jeb and Kana, the Amazons charged the machine guns and fell dead at the very feet of the French gunners. But again, it was the old story of a primitive man and his bravery and persistence against the machines. A few days later, Colonel Dodds captured Dioxine, which was the King Shark's largest palace. Now the King Shark wanted peace, especially now that two of his neighbors, the Egbas and the Jesus, had joined the French. So he sent 3 envoys to Colonel Dodds, offering indemnity of $5 million at that time, and free trade at the port of Continental. As a peace token, he sent cattle, gold, and 2 silver hands of superb Dahomeian work, asking Dodds to take one of the hands and cross it with his own as a sign of friendship. Dodds accepted and returned biscuits and conserves, saying that he was willing to make peace as long as the King Shark permitted him to hoist the French flag in his capital. Of course, the King Shark refused. Fuck that. Tripping. And after a stiff battle, the French captured Abomey, or rather its ruins. Why? Because the King Shark fired the town, destroyed his palace and all the wonderful art of it. But his throne remained standing and was later presented to King Tofa. With the King Shark on the run, Colonel Dodds named the King Shark's brother, Agli Agbo, the king, and told the Dahomeians that henceforth they were under the protection of the French. Listen to that. So after they beat him, they put their flag down on him. So soon after Colonel Dodds sailed for France, but hardly had he arrived when Behanzin, or the King Shark, was again on the warpath. He came back for more, y'all. Returning, he defeated the King Shark. And on my daughter's birthday, January 24th, 1894, with the last of his army gone, the King Shark walked coolly into the French camp, long pipe in his mouth, and gave himself up. He was given a glass of rum, which he took down real quick, and was taken off to the coast, and then to France, when later he was exiled to Martinique. And for many years, he tried to get back to his native land. And finally, he was permitted to live in Algeria. He died at Bleda in 1906 at the age of 65. That is the true King Shark. Behanzin Hossu Bowelle, aka the King Shark.
Shout out my man King Oz. If you haven't already subscribed to the YouTube channel, make sure you subscribe to King Oz's YouTube channel. A lot of great content, good discussions, and a lot of eye-opening information from true and honest perspectives. Make sure you get your little book of
Peace and blessings, family, and salute to the God King Oz, a dope brother, a woke brother, father, and an author of the little book of everything. Do me a favor, man. Join the family, tell a friend and tell a friend. Like, share, comment, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Don't cheat yourself, treat yourself.
And I want to give a silverback shout out to my brother King Dumas on this little book of everything. And it's packed from page to page with nothing but information that the people in the community needs. I don't know how he decided what goes in this book for each individual that he personally writes one for, but he knocked mine out of the park. Thank you, Brother King Dumas, and everybody should have this little book of everything. Nothing but information. Thank you, brother. Much love.
Y'all know who it is, Elijah Lamar, tapping in from the BMF TV series. I need everybody to go ahead and subscribe to King Oz's page right now. KINGOZ, King Oz. Dude got great content and dope information for you to go ahead and take in. Trust me, you won't regret it. Subscribe.